Morning, everyone, or good afternoon. I'm gonna give just everybody a second to get into the meeting and then we'll get started. All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stacy Paisno. I'm a lead project manager at the South Florida Water Management District in the Water Supply Bureau. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I will be your moderator and host for today's webinar. This is our second and last of the informational webinars we're hosting for the DEP FY26 funding opportunity. The webinar is being recorded and it will be posted on our YouTube channel. And we'll also post a link to the YouTube channel on our CFP website. Upon completion of the presentation, I'll have further instructions on providing comments or any questions you may have. Governor DeSantis signed an executive order Achieving Even More Now for Florida's Environment, which requests recurring annual funding for alternative water supply development. The governor and the legislature have recognized the importance of these projects and protection of Florida's natural systems and have allocated $310 million statewide towards these types of projects over the last 5 legislative sessions. During May 2024, the governing board approved our FY25 project list, and it was forwarded to DEP for allocations. The list is posted on our website, and we have not been notified of those allocations at this time, but we hope to hear something in the near future. On our website, you'll find the guidelines, the application, our program contacts, example application, and tutorials. There is an acknowledgement form that has to be completed and attached as a signed PDF file on entity's letterhead by an authorized representative. And by authorized representative, we mean either your HOA treasurer, president, your utilities director, your CEO type of person. In anticipation of FY26 funds being allocated by the legislature, we opened our application on December 2nd of last year. As I mentioned earlier, this is the second and last of our informational Zoom webinars. The application will close on February 26th, promptly at 4 p.m. Please do not wait until 3:59 to try and upload your application. The portal will automatically close at 4 o'clock. We will not accept anything via email of your application. It has to be through our online submission portal. After the deadline during March and April, we will do an internal staff review of all applications received. And in May, I will go to the governing board with the proposed project list for approval and ultimate submittal to DEP by May 31st. People ask who can apply. From this list, you can tell pretty much anyone can apply. For project eligibility, you must adhere to all application instructions, laws, and regulations. For local governments, you must have an adopted ordinance that comports with the district's year-round irrigation rule to be eligible for funding, as well as having an approved water supply facilities work plan per state statute to be eligible for funding consideration. 2 user groups that are not eligible for funding consideration are if it's a single family resident unit owner who wants to just retrofit their indoor plumbing or their irrigation of their home, are not eligible to apply. If it's an HOA, then yes. And if you are out of permit compliant with any district or DEP issued permit, you're not eligible for funding. This is a reimbursement program. No one is guaranteed to receive up to the full 50% funding. Applicants are responsible to move forward with a project with or without district or state funding. Anticipated dates are the district's fiscal year, which is for this particular application is October 1st, 2025 through September 30th of 2027. These dates are subject to change based on legislative appropriations. But we've provided this as a general guideline to assist applicants to determine if your project application should be submitted. Allowable costs are towards the project identified in your application and for construction or implementation costs within that stated funding period. Some non-allowable costs include anything that is prior to or after the funding period, any permitting, design, engineering, pilot programs, anything that's considered operation and maintenance, lobbying, educational. The funding is available for two different project types. The first is alternative water supply, and that is increasing water supply through the development of non-traditional water sources and or storage. Robert Wanderstraat will be reviewing these in more detail in a few slides. And for water conservation, those are projects that use hardware or technology to increase water use efficiency. And Adele will be discussing more specifics later on in this presentation. As part of the DEP AWS guidance document, they've requested that the districts provide a prioritized list of projects based on some of the following considerations. These projects should have regional benefits. They should support an MFL water body if applicable. Any additional benefits such as water quality or flood control. Projects need to be shovel ready and have undergone a cost benefit analysis. Historically, the governing board's priorities have considered applicants must be within the district's boundaries or the project has to provide district benefits to our district. It must be an AWS or a water conservation project. Construction or implementation, again, means no operations and maintenance, design, engineering, permitting, or pilot programs. Projects should support the district's mission or an approved regional water supply plan. Prioritized projects are based on regional or resource considerations, such as a restricted allocation area, and local governments must have an approved irrigation ordinance, which comports with the district's year-round irrigation rule. And in November of 2024, the governing board meeting, we clarified the eligibility requirement for local governments having a water supply facilities work plan per statutory requirements. These last two items do not apply to private entities. At this time, I'll turn it over to Robert Wanderstraat, who's our reuse coordinator, who will focus on the AWS side of the house.
Thank you, Stacy. The alternative water supply side of the CFP program focuses on projects that increase water supplies through the development of non-traditional water sources and storage associated with those sources. And those include saltwater, brackish water sources, reclaimed water, surface or storm water sources, which also includes tailwater recovery, and again, the new storage associated with those sources. And if there's any other source that we have not designated on this slide, but that you may consider non-traditional, and if it's in our regional water supply plan, those would be could be considered under the program. Now, I need to emphasize that this program, or this side of the program, focuses on the development of alternative water supply and storage, not operations and maintenance. So O&M projects are not supported even for alternative water supply source projects. So this kind of drills down a little bit into the considerations for the alternative water supply projects that we do support. Those that are supportive of the goals and objectives of our regional water supply plans, those that reduce dependency on traditional water sources, those projects that support ocean outfall legislation, and those that contribute to alternative water supply development in resource-limited areas. Drilling down another step, these are the high level of what the allowable alternative water supply construction costs that are eligible under this side of the cooperative funding program. They include raw water transmission mains, reclaimed water and storage tanks, pump stations, distribution mains, RO trains and pumps and the associated appurtenances, surface and stormwater storage, and any wells associated with an alternative water supply project, and those include aquifer storage and recovery wells, brackish water production wells, and concentrate disposal wells. And very generally, these are the costs that are not considered eligible under the program. Those would be the design and permitting and as-built and early completion bonuses, operations and maintenance, as I stated earlier. Anything related to finished water storage tanks or transmission lines, end user service line connections, backup generators, and replacement of landscaping, concrete pads, protective coverings, etc. One last final note, just to be very clear, the application for the AWS program has changed from last year. If you're familiar with that application, it was in a Microsoft Word format and it is now in an Excel format. It must be submitted in an Excel format and not a PDF form, but it should not bring any new questions. I believe there's only 4 new questions. Otherwise, it's pretty much identical to the application of this program for past years, if you're familiar with that. I'm going to now turn it over to my colleague Adele Piena, and she's going to walk through the water conservation side of the CFP program.
Good afternoon, everyone. So the Cooperative Funding Program for Water Conservation aims to support projects that improve water use efficiency within the district. The type of entities that are eligible to apply can be an agricultural producer, an HOA, utility, local government. And some of the projects that have been funded in the past are high efficiency indoor fixture retrofits, irrigation retrofits, automatic flushing devices, commercial projects like cooling tower retrofits. The project can also be in the form of a rebate where you have a managing entity like a utility or local government who then processes rebates for their residential customers or commercial customers. So when we are looking at your presentation, we are looking at the several components. So we are looking at whether or not there's overall benefits to the environment or the surrounding community. We're looking at the source of water being conserved. We're looking at the quantity of water being conserved. And a key component is cost effectiveness, which is the measure of how much it costs to save 1,000 gallons of water. So for funding, to maximize funding effectiveness, we would like to see that projects have a cost effectiveness of either equal to or less than $6 per kcal. So our water conservation projects can be categorized into either urban or agricultural. So for urban projects, we're looking at indoor fixtures or other water using appliances. For irrigation, again, these are going to be irrigation upgrades or sensors, system audits. We may also cover or work with new construction if the builder is working towards certification for Florida Water Star. If you'd like more information on that, please visit floridawaterstar.com. So other types of projects that we will consider funding are installation of sub-meters, cooling tower efficiency upgrades, advanced meter analytics software or customer portals. A lot of utilities are using that nowadays. And there may be some other projects that are not necessarily listed here that we may be open to. Just reach out to us before you start filling out the application. So projects that we do not fund are gonna be indoor fixtures for new construction. Unless, of course, it's part of Florida Water Star. No type of automatic meter reading or anything that pertains for maintenance. We don't do waterless urinals. Installation of new irrigation systems, we'll do retrofits and replacement landscaping. So the next type of projects that we fund are agricultural projects. So these are generally gonna be irrigation conversions from a less efficient method to a more efficient method. Or they're gonna be precision ag. So it's gonna be soil probes, weather stations and so on. We also do pump station automation, VFD retrofits, flow meters if they're part of a bigger project. And again, it could be other projects that we may be open to that are not necessarily listed here. So projects that we do not fund are gonna be, again, installation of a completely new irrigation system. We don't do any kind of water control structures, no type of nutrient management, projects or hardware, pump replacements, freeze frost protection or any tailwater recovery, systems. So that concludes my overview of water conservation projects. I'll hand it over back to Stacy.
Thank you. So I'm gonna go over a quick overview of our website if you have not been to it yet. So on the main landing page under doing business with us is grants and funding opportunities for COOP funding. And this just gives you the history of the program a little bit, high level. And then as you scroll down, you have the schedule. Again, the portal closes at 4 p.m. on February 26th. Please do not miss this deadline. I cannot accept applications via email. Both of those Zoom webinars will change to being links to our YouTube channel for the one that was recorded on the 15th and then at the conclusion of today's meeting. At the bottom of this particular screenshot, you see the hyperlink that says online submission portal. Once you've downloaded everything and you believe you're done, you're going to click that link to submit your application. As you scroll down, under list of documents is the guidelines. If you haven't reviewed them, there are changes every year that we do. As Robert mentioned earlier, the AWS application has changed formatting and the acknowledgement form that has to be uploaded with your application. So whether you're doing an AWS application or a water conservation application, you must have two documents uploaded, your application and your acknowledgement form. This year, we created tutorials for each of our application types. So AWS, water conservation, ag, nursery, and one for urban. And then we have example applications you can review as well if you're unsure of how to fill out the application for your particular project. So going back 2 slides where I talked about that online submission portal link, when you click that, it should open a new tab in your browser. And this is what that tab looks like. We want to make sure you're populating all the information in here. It is required. If you are a vendor who's submitting this on behalf of an entity, please make sure to put that entity's name in this submission form and a good contact information. If you don't provide a good email, so if you said info at abc.com, I'm not going to get answers if we have issues with your application, or if you give me a generic customer service line or a phone number, I'm not going to be able to reach out to someone to address issues with your application or for missing documentation. You must include the latitude and longitude. If you are unsure what that is, you can click the hyperlink that says click here to enter your address. Once you enter your address and hit enter, it will auto-populate these 2 fields for you. And then you're gonna have to click either AWS or water conservation. And then you upload one file at a time. So you would upload the application and then add another file to upload your acknowledgement form. You can upload other documentation, but those are the minimum two required. And then you have to do your CAPTCHA and submit your request. After you submit your request, you should receive an automatic confirmation email. That is at an email address that is not monitored. But if you have concerns, you can reach out to me going, hey, I didn't get a confirmation, but I thought I submitted it, and I can let you know. All right. At this time, we'll take any questions you may have. If you're participating via Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature. If you're participating via phone, you can *9 to raise your hand. And when you're called upon, please state your full name and your affiliation prior to providing any comments or questions you have. The first up is Andrew Steiner. And I apologize in advance if I get anyone's name incorrect.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. My name is Andrew Steiner. I'm with JLA Geosciences. We represent some local utilities with water use permits. My question is, I just wanted to know a little bit about the approval process. So what goes into who's approved, who's denied, so on and so forth.
It goes through an internal review process. So before things are moved on to the internal review team, you have to meet the qualification standards. So if it's a local government, if they have a water supply facilities work plan, and an irrigation ordinance, they would be moved forward in the process. If they do not, then they would not be moved forward in the process. If it is an O&M type project, so for example, if someone sent in that they were doing a stormwater project that had nothing to do with a alternative water supply or water conservation, that would not be moved on in the process. So those are the types of projects that would be considered ineligible for funding consideration. And when those go to the governing board in May, it's clearly defined. Anything that's above the line was eligible and reviewed. Anything below the line was ineligible for a variety of reasons. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Do we have any other questions? Well, I see no further hands raised. I want to thank Robert and Adele for their portions of the presentation today. I want to thank everyone for taking part of your afternoon to join us for this informational webinar, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.